It is October 30th, 1938. The night before Halloween. You are sitting in your living room in New Jersey. Martians have just landed in a field 11 miles from your house. At least, that's what the radio is saying. Tomorrow morning, every newspaper in America will report that you ran screaming into the streets, that the highways were jammed, hospitals overwhelmed, the nation collapsed into mass hysteria. Almost none of it will be true, but the lie will last 88 years. The reason it survives has nothing to do with Martians, and everything to do with something you won't see coming. You are there for the night America didn't panic, and the morning someone decided to say you did. It's 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You turn your radio dial to CBS. A voice announces, "The Columbia Broadcasting System presents Orson Welles and the Mercury Theatre on the air." In The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. You hear that? It is clear. It is unambiguous. This is a radio play, but almost nobody else hears it. America is listening to the Chase and Sanborn Hour on NBC. It commands roughly 34% of the national radio audience. CBS pulls about 3.6%. Wells has done something clever with the format. The first half is structured as fake breaking news, bulletins interrupting a dance orchestra, a reporter dispatched to a farmer's field in New Jersey, something emerging from a metal cylinder in the ground. If you tuned in at 8 y, you know it's fiction. But if you tuned in late, say during a commercial break, you hear what sounds like a real news broadcast. Some people do tune in late. Some are confused. Some are briefly frightened. A woman in Indianapolis calls a church to ask if the end of the world is coming. Some call the police or CBS. But most figure it out within minutes, either because the show switches to conventional narration, or because they turn the dial and find that no other station is reporting an alien invasion. At 8:40, another station identification. You are listening to a CBS presentation of Orson Welles and the Mercury Theatre on the air. At 9 Juas, it ends. Welles comes on the microphone. He tells the audience it was fiction, the Mercury Theatre's own radio version of dressing up in a sheet and jumping out of a bush and saying boo. You turn off your radio, you go to bed, you did not panic, you did not run into the street, you did not call the hospital, you did not load your family into the car, you listened to a radio play, recognized it as such, and went to sleep. So did almost everyone else in America. The panic starts tomorrow morning, and it won't come from the radio. You wake up on Halloween morning. You walk to the newsstand on the corner. The front page stops you cold. The New York Times is reporting that a radio broadcast about Martians caused mass hysteria across the nation. The Daily News says listeners fled their homes in terror. The Philadelphia Inquirer reports hospitals treated people for shock. Papers from coast to coast are printing stories about panicked mobs, traffic jams, and citizens wrapping their faces in wet towels. An image that may have been invented entirely by a single reporter, but will appear in every retelling for 80 years. You stand on the sidewalk holding a newspaper that is lying about your own experience. You were listening last night. You didn't panic. Nobody on your block panicked. You didn't hear sirens. You didn't see anyone running. But the New York Times is telling you it happened. And because the printed word still carries the authority of truth in 1938, part of you almost believes it, even though you were there, even though you know. Something is wrong with this picture, and it has nothing to do with Martians. Here is what is actually happening, and you don't know any of this yet. You just know the newspaper is wrong. In 1938, the American newspaper industry is fighting for its life, not against aliens, but against radio. Since the early 1930s, radio has been devouring newspaper advertising revenue. Businesses that once bought full-page ads are shifting their budgets to the new medium. Radio is faster. Radio is free. Radio reaches people in their homes while they're eating dinner. By 1938, radio advertising revenue has surpassed newspaper advertising revenue for the first time. The newspapers are desperate, and Orson Welles has just handed them a gift. A radio broadcast confused some people. Not millions, not thousands, a handful. Enough to generate phone calls to police stations and CBS affiliates, enough to produce genuine anecdotes about briefly frightened listeners. Were some people actually frightened? Yes. The handful of genuine reactions were real, but the mass hysteria built on top of them was not. The newspapers take those anecdotes and construct a narrative. They don't count the actual number of calls. They don't verify the stories. They don't ask how many callers were genuinely terrified versus merely curious. They take every fragment of confusion and inflate it into a national catastrophe. The headlines are designed to deliver one message: radio is dangerous. Radio cannot be trusted. Radio deceives the public. Radio causes panic. Radio is not a responsible medium for news, not like newspapers. Within days, the FCC launches an investigation. Politicians call for regulation of radio broadcasting. The public conversation shifts from "what a clever radio play" to "should the government control what radio is allowed to broadcast?" The investigation finds nothing wrong. Welles committed no crime. CBS violated no regulations. The broadcast included clear disclaimers at the beginning, middle, and end. The FCC closes the case. But the myth is already loose, and it's about to find allies. The newspapers lit the fire. But the myth survives because everyone who touches it has a reason to keep it burning. Orson Welles benefits most. Before October 30th, he is a talented but obscure 23-year-old. After October 30th, he is the most talked about man in America. Years later, an interviewer will ask him whether he felt guilty about the panic. He'll pause, the famous Welles pause, and then smile. He knows the panic didn't happen the way the newspapers described, but the myth made him the most famous director in America at 23. It gave him Hollywood. It gave him Citizen Kane. Why would he correct the record? The lie was the best thing that ever happened to him. CBS benefits because the controversy generates massive publicity. The network that scared America suddenly has high name recognition. Ratings spike. Sponsors pay attention. And in 1940, a Princeton professor named Hadley Cantrell publishes a study, claiming to prove the panic was real. The invasion from Mars will be cited for decades in textbooks, documentaries, and late-night arguments, but later scholars will dismantle his methodology. His sample was tiny. His interview questions assumed panic had occurred and asked people to describe it, not whether it happened at all. He found what everyone in 1940 already knew. His study didn't document the panic, it documented the myth. The myth feeds itself. Each repetition makes the next repetition easier. Newspapers cite Cantrell. Cantrell cites the newspapers. Documentaries cite both. Even PBS's American Experience in 2013 will be criticized by historians for reinforcing the panic narrative. By the time you're watching documentaries about it 80 years later, the story has hardened into something that feels like history but isn't. It's a story about a story, a panic about a panic, a myth built by an industry trying to destroy its competitor, embraced by a showman who needed a legend, certified by a professor who found what he was looking for, and repeated by a culture that loves the idea that Americans are gullible enough to believe Martians are landing in New Jersey. Go back to your living room, October 30th, 1938. You're sitting in your chair. The radio is playing. A 23-year-old genius has just performed a brilliant piece of experimental theater. And you listened to it and you understood it was fiction, and you went to bed. Tomorrow morning, the newspaper will tell you that you panicked, and because it's printed in black and white on the front page of the New York Times, the lie will outlive you. It will outlive your children. It will outlive everyone in this room. The lesson is simpler and worse. The people who tell you what happened are not always the people who were there. Sometimes they're the people who profit from a version of events that never occurred. In 1938, newspapers manufactured a fake panic to discredit radio. The strategy didn't save the newspaper industry. Radio won anyway, and then television won after that. But the tactics survived. The discovery that you can invent a public reaction, print it as fact, and watch it harden into history. That technology is still in use. It has never been more powerful than it is right now. The night of October 30th, 1938, America didn't panic. The morning of October 31st, the newspapers said it did. And we've been repeating their version ever since. October 30th, 1938. A night like all nights, filled with those events that alter and illuminate our times. And now, you were there.